All right. I'll speak to you soon. Yeah. Your spiritual progress is very different for each person. And walking along the spiritual path, then all your previous actions and karma then influence the steps that you will then take. And I will give a story a little later regarding this karma. But in order to progress further on, beyond the realm of working with yourself, then you must have a strong sense of self. You must be aware of yourself and aware of your actions and what you do. So a sense of awareness and watching becomes important. Obviously, there are many other factors which come into play. But once you have a sense of yourself, then the outside world can be surrendered. Prior to this, the outside world appears to be in control of you. And you are reactive rather than creative. And life seems to happen to you, but in truth, it happens from you. Without this awareness, then there is no stability that you can take steps away from. At this point, then, you choose to surrender. Surrender to the Great Mother. If you like, Mother Nature, the earth. Once you are in control of yourself, you no longer need the external world. And your ability to love comes from this sense of self, not from a sense of weakness. If you perceive weakness, then your ability to express love becomes minimalized, as the external world either accepts or rejects the love that you send to it. But if your sense of self, your self-esteem, if you like that word, has gone beyond the winds of change into the stability that you find on your inside, then the exterior world not bothering you, you choose love as your cause. And because of this, you can look at another, whoever they may be, and that person, that other, allows you to be the love that you truly are. So some time ago, a story was given of a person watching their child on stage, and they perform. And within, let us say, the mother or the father, then there is an opening that can happen. And a feeling of love, sometimes falsely called pride, awakens in the mother or the father as they look at their child. And they say it's because of the child. But that would not be true. The love has come outwards, not inwards. But if either parent is not firmly established in their sense of self, then it would be very difficult to perpetuate that feeling of love to the external world. So as the sense of self increases, it then becomes surrendered. And then the love becomes a true expression and is given to all. Without condition. So let us change these words from love to an expression of spirit. If you are feeling agitated and unstable within yourself, then your expression of spirit is tainted through the fears that you fear in your mind. So hence the full expression is not possible. As the stability of your practice, often meditation, but the practice of self becomes more stable, then the expression of spirit becomes far easier and grander. But not only is it available or given in short incidences, but then it is capable of being expressed for longer and bigger periods of time. So as you become stable in yourself, then your ability to truly express love becomes more evident in the world. And your ability to express spirit, which of course is love, also becomes more visible in the exterior world. So your practice of understanding self is prior to the surrender of yourself. Now, you must have heard of those great yogis who become renunciants, go live in a cave, and give up the external world just for a rather simplistic life. It is only able to be completed when then the renunciant has a sense of their own being. And their renunciation is not external, though it appears to be external, as they live in a cave with very, very little. But the true renunciant is the internal renunciation. And this is what is surrendered. Now let us bring all of this down into a simplistic way that's applicable to those within, let us say, the worldly life. Your practice must be one of getting a sense of self, which will be achieved through meditation. The self beyond the physical world. Your opening spiritually will become evident. Remember, it is not a miracle, it is just the natural law. But as you progress, then there are certain karmas which start to arrive, or certain thought patterns. And your instinct may be to respond. So let's say you're on your spiritual journey and you've been meditating for a little period of time, and up rises anger or jealousy or any other emotion. Now, there are beings, non-physical beings, which are labeled in various traditions in different ways, which are around you physically. Again, in essence, they are an aspect of you, but you do not perceive that as being part of you. And these physical beings are there to take away issues that you may have and for you to surrender them to those beings. You may say, well, where and who and why and what are these beings? Now, in some traditions, you may call them angels, some masters, other traditions gurus, some have names of deities. But in this example, I will say it is the Great Mother, Mother Earth, Mother Nature. If you would like the simplistic way of saying mother. If you are Hindu, I would say it is Kali. So when you have, let us say, anger arising, you call on the mother, Kali, and you feel it arise and say, Kali, I give you this emotion. Take it from me. And as you call, that being will approach. And the role of that being is to remove the block that you have. But you must surrender it. You must give it. If you fail to give it, then it will stay with you and not be removed in its entirety. You do not surrender this after the anger has been expressed, but rather as it is beginning to rise. Remember, you must not hold it. It must be given. And if it is given, it will be taken. If you wish to hold on to your anger, then of course it will not be taken. It cannot be. Now, Kali is often depicted as a fearsome being with blood-curdling sounds, pointed teeth, and a skirt of skulls that comes as a destroyer of life. But they are, or she is, the destroyer of obstacles. But she has two faces, Kali. The horrific and the beautiful. As you see the true value of Kali, of the giving to her, and she taking from you, and then you see the beauty. That lies on the other side of Kali. And in surrendering these qualities that no longer serve you, then of course your propensity to react from them becomes weakened with each occasion. And your sense of self becomes stronger, and your sense of spirit also becomes stronger. But it's only when that strong sense of self means you can surrender the world, of course, then you become your true self. And that is why the true guru, the true teacher, teaches nothing other than is there to remind you of the light. So, to conclude, your sense of self is gained over time. You step further away from the physical world. The ability to love, the ability to express spirit will grow. Those remaining issues as they arrive can be given away to those that know how to take them away. From that sense of self, the ability to love becomes stronger and stronger. The love becomes more unconditional as it becomes an expression of you, not something to be found, discovered, or fallen into, but it is you. And spirit then stop being an activity that you undertake 1 hour here and 1 hour there, but become more permanent. So often those great beings that you know of are the expression of love. It is no miracle. It is the natural law. So let us continue. I heard my medium say there is a 1 week break, indeed so. And we will continue in the subsequent weeks with a new topic. But for now, may I have the healing list of names, please, Brandon?
Pia, Pat, Greg, Amanda, Devin, Jerry, Guy and Helen, Graham and Wendy Beck, Tony and Teresa, Cynthia, Patricia, Maddie, Chantal, Rose Frazier, Howard, Teresa, Mike Eskins, Samantha, Liz, and Carolyn, Diane Smith, Keyshawn, Manny, Tracy, Eric, Stephen, Matthew, Marianne, Jody, Jill, Katie, Mitch, the Di Lorenzo family, Sister Georgianne, Daniel, Chantel, Stephanie, and Wendy Lund. Thank you.
Now, last week we said this week would be questions. And you may ask a question that is appropriate to you or to the topic, as you see fit. So do I have a first question, please?
Yes, you do. Dave, would you like to ask a question?
Okay, thanks. Hello, Ignatius. The question is, where do souls or spirit beings come from? And what was there before there were souls or spiritual beings, spirit beings?
As you follow the path of surrendering what is heavy to become what is light, if you think in terms of vibration, or if you think of bodies surrendering to reveal then the soul that is underneath it, then the soul also surrenders in its individuality, and over periods of steps taken, then eventually that journey ends in an expression of the absolute, the creator, what we are calling spirit. And as that spirit then decides that it is no more than an expression, its final step is to cease being the expression of God and become God. And God is eternal. Now, so there is no beginning or end in truth. So the journey is repetitive. As one becomes dense, then begins the journey to be light, if you like. So the truth is, there's no end other than falling into who you truly are. Now, the Creator desires to understand and to work within itself, and also chooses to become a full expression of itself rather than a limited expression. A full expression must mean that there is expansion, as opposed to a limited expression, which must have some definition. So the expansion that takes place is the expansion of God, or the absolute, or whichever word you would like that is appropriate. So the expansion means that the cycle must begin again and again. So what, if you would like to be biblical, Adam and Eve leave the Garden of Eden one more time, only to return and then to leave again. And in leaving each time, the expansion is then begun, or taking place, if you would like. So in essence, there is no beginning and end, only a perception of beginning and end. It's rather like the physical body, isn't it? There is a perception of beginning and end. But in truth, that is not what takes place. So expansion means a continuation of a process. But the eyes of man see beginning and end. See, a man, or woman, of course, man in the generic sense, sees the world through duality. It is either here or it is there. It either exists or does not exist. If you would like, God is either in the clouds, external to the world, or within the world in every single thing. Which one is it? Well, the truth is both are accurate. So from a human sense, there appears to be a birth and a death and a play which is undertook within the 80 or so years of life. And man thinks, then I must struggle to be my spiritual self. Of course, that is not the truth, but that is the perception according to the eyesight of the individual. So in essence, there is no birth of a soul, and there is a birth of a soul. It is all to do with the expansion of self into a true expression of all that I can be. So again, perhaps on a personal level, you could be anything in the world that you wish to be. But various forces say that you are this expression or that expression. But total potentiality means you could be, and in fact, you are everything. everything. So perhaps, Dave, there is perhaps no totally satisfactory answer to your question, other than to show you the truth that lies underneath it and say there is expansion and contraction taking place at the same time, which first appears to be contradictory, but it is not. Are you willing to accept the answer?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Is there another question, Brandon?
Yes, there's Jim.
Hi, Ignatius.
Good evening.
Good evening. How do we transition ourselves from favoring the physical to favoring the spiritual? In other words, letting go of attachments to our thoughts and desires to being more firmly established on a steady spiritual path?
Yeah. What a fine question. As you begin a process of meditation, it is often said that thoughts are very difficult. And sometimes you may have a moment of total clarity followed by another moment of very difficult thoughts that occur. So you glimpse a little truth and then you get caught or bound within the thoughts of the world. Now, there is no simple answer for one to remove the thought and to go back into the clarity of stillness. The simplest way to look at it is, who is it that is having the thought or the agitation? And what I mean is that you that is having the thought? Or is that the very tip or the edge of the mind that is having the thought? And of course, with a little hindsight and a little capability, then you can see that the thoughts are in fact right on the edge of the mind. They are not in the depth of the mind, but they do arise from somewhere. So these thoughts are on the edge of what could be perceived as the self or the beginning of the self. Exploration will take it deeper than that. So the thoughts on the edge of the mind, to go past them, go deeper into the reality of yourself. Now, for this to be true, it must be consistent almost with Dave's story. And if we change the word slightly, you will see that thoughts are belonging to the physicality or the edge of the physicality and perhaps one step back. But the true self is beyond that. So the thoughts that arise are, in fact, no hindrance to meditation if you know where to look. So again, changing the words. You are already spirit. The thoughts are telling you you are not. You are already God, but the physical world says you are a mere man. So again, going back to my story I opened with, a sense of self allows a fuller expression. Not the egoic self, although you may become aware of it, but a sense of the self underneath the thought. So you don't become spiritual because you already are spirit. You stop playing the game of physical. So there is nothing to be gained, only to be lost. So removing the weight that stops you floating to the surface. Do you understand, Jim? Have I answered your question sufficiently?
Yes. Yes, a lot to think about. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Do you know when you write, and as you write, the expression that has been mentioned before, bring the writing out of the silence, not out of the mind. To bring the spiritual knowledge out of the silence, not out of the limited knowledge within the human mind. Be the silence, not the mind, not the chatter of the mind. Remember, if you describe yourself one way and you believe it, that is no more than the chatter of the mind. But the truth is that is only a false belief. The truth is beyond that false belief. Surrender what you don't know to whoever is your appropriate being, Kali, or your guru, or your guardian angel. If you truly mean it, and all is taken away, what is left then? What can possibly be left if the thoughts and the body is removed? Now that is something to meditate upon. In Zen, they would give you a koan which says, "Who was I before my parents were born?" Now this, of course, is a mind twist. But in essence, it's saying the same thing, the removal of the physical to reveal the emptiness of your truth. And then you'll have no choice but to love. Thank you. Brandon, is there another question?
Yes, there is. Tracy, you're up next.
Thank you, Brandon. Hi, Ignatius. I want to thank you for the story that you brought us last week regarding the boat, building your boat. Once you have security, safety, and self-esteem, and then setting sail, that meant a lot. And I shared it with my husband, so I really do appreciate that.
There's more to come on that story, my dear. But time will tell. As I inferred when I said to Terry last week, thank you for the notes, that story of the boat will reoccur at a later date. Forgive me, I interrupted you.
Well, that's my question is, in your opinion, where do you see me at that stage? Am I still building that boat, or can I take the risk and set sail? Or am I strongly able to set sail?
Yes. So if you build a boat which is based on security, safety, self-esteem, then you may have a very strong boat, but we must set a sail, as we said. And that sail then is initially a desire for exploration. But before you can set that sail, you must have a mast. And the mast is indicative or symbolic of the word loneliness or isolation. Now, let me change the word loneliness, as that's what it may start with, to aloneness. You see that the strength of self that is created or symbolically given to you as building a boat means that those on the spiritual path then start to feel alone on that path. So you've built up a strong sense of self, and then being by yourself is of no consequence at all. And that becomes more stable. So again, the renunciant starts to give away. And then there is desire for exploration. Exploring self, exploring possibility or potential is the first part of raising the sail. So the question is, I believe, would be two parts. Are you able, and there's no need for you to answer verbally, you would know your answer inter. Are you able to be totally alone and be perfectly fine? Now, alone means without the support of other or society or the needs that some people have for, let us say, money or safety, security of, would you be okay if you had no work or no job or your money was limited? Now, so you begin then. If you are comfortable with that, then you raise your sail and begin your exploration, knowing that no damage can really occur to you, only the enjoyment. And as you begin to open the sail, love arises, and the discovery or expression of your purpose must come. So, and then the sailing around the world is the phrase, I am in the world, but not of it. And you can sail from one shore to another without a sense of fear rather than a sense of excitement. I'm in a new place I can explore. No. Now, the truth is, all of these, ranging from the beginning of safety, the beginning of building the boat, the connections that are required, the self-esteem, up to the expression of purpose and transcendence. All of these are occurring all at the same time. They are not one after another, although they appear to be. You can easily be finding your new world as such. And then what happens when you find a new world? You want to find some safety, some connection, some security, some self-esteem of where you are. Then, of course, love may be held back a little and then expressed. So all of these can occur all at the same time, all these levels. But with each pass through the levels, if you like, they get stronger and more stable and then become less of a deliberate building cycle, if you like. Now, let's see if I can put all of this together to connect to both Dave and Jim's stories or questions. The truth is, you are already transcended, and you play the play of building security and safety and connection. And the soul begins to set sail with each birth, or even elements within each birth of building this figurative boat. But once you understand this, then you enjoy it no more than a play of pretending to be unconnected. And then that becomes the enjoyable part. But when without that knowledge, it becomes the most difficult and painful part. So the answer to the question is depending upon your viewpoint, isn't it? If you view yourself, let's say, still building the boat, then you need to make sure everything is hammered down rather well. But if you see yourself beyond the physical being, then there's not so much of a call to have every plank firmly in place because no damage will take place anyway. So you see, the journey then is the journey within the mind, isn't it? The mind believes that there is a need for safety and security, and what is beyond the mind is not limited by it. So if you can follow my words and you can accept them as truth, the conclusion must be, if you believe you are ready, you are ready. If you believe you are not, you are not. So does this answer your question? I fear it does not totally.
Actually, it does perfectly.
You understand?
I do. Thank you.
Then I thank you for your question. Is there another question, Brent?
Yes, we have time for one more. This one goes to Wendy.
Ignatius, yes.
Good evening, my dear.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your talk and for taking my question. You have said that there are beings around us that are an aspect of us that can take away issues. And I understand this and experience this energetically and emotionally, and even temporarily physically when I'm in a deep state of meditation. But I'm wondering how I could fully give the physical pain or illness or infection that it wouldn't be there in my body. Is that possible as well? Is that a matter of giving fully, or are we to remain with our physical disabilities or illness?
Yes. Now, I did say a story that I would tell, and I will say that in a moment to answer your question. But the truth is, although your question is really based in, well, you believe you're a body, and therefore you will hold and believe in all bodily circumstance. But you are not a body. If you are not the body, then what is being held on to? It's no more than the belief of the body, isn't it? If you believe it, then that's what you are. So your viewpoint needs to change from being the viewpoint of the humanity to the viewpoint of spirit seeing the body at play. Let me give you the story. There was a judge who lived in Varanasi. Varanasi is one of the seats of Shiva. And within that town, that is what they worship, or in a majority sense, worship Shiva. Now, this judge was a very learned man, of course, and his intellect was quite strong. Yet his mother was quite pious, and his mother went to temple and worshipped and gave respects to Shiva, and constantly said to her son, come to the temple. And he said, I'm too busy. But she persisted, and eventually the son went with the mother to the temple. And on the way to the temple, there was a car accident, and the judge was injured, but only injured and not seriously. And that night, he dreamt of Shiva. And in his dream, Shiva said, you silly man, can you not see that your karma was to have a serious accident? But because you are on the way to the temple to pay your respects to me, your injury was diminished. Upon awakening, the man realized and went to see his mother and bow down to respect his mother and say all that he had looked at life as being wrong. You see, with karma, there are two forces in play. Karma of the individual. What you do, you will receive. If you do good, you receive good, etc. But there is karma also of a greater level that is beyond the influence of an individual. So here you have karma, let us say, which may generate wars or great disease, famine, etc. So the karma of an individual is very much being influenced by you. So you do one thing and you will receive accordingly. But then you may be drawn into a circumstance which is not related to you. Let's say, for example, a war. And this is the karma related to an area, an event, a society, etc. So what occurs to you is a result of what you may have done or what society may have done. They're not in your control. Now, if you can accept that, then you can see that the results of your actions are being played out despite you, are not in your control at all. but are a result of events which may have occurred a lifetime ago. But then you can separate from the play and see that, well, that is just the result of something before. It's not personal, it is the law. You give, you receive. So injuries, for example, which have occurred to you may have been a result of something before. And then you can see them just as that result that must be lived. And you should be grateful they must be lived now, as they are dealt with now then. You do not need to deal with them before. But what is being surrendered in the story that I said before was the rise of false action which would cause future karma. Let us say the propensity to be angry would create karma which you would live, let us say tomorrow or next lifetime. And you, in clarity, realize that that is perhaps not the most satisfactory process. So you say, as the anger arises, the seed of karma flourishes into the seed of anger begins to grow into the mind. Before it's expressed, you say, I do not want this seed. And surrender it. So the answer to your question, you see, is twofold. What you have and what you will have, and where you view it from. I've constantly said it's not what occurs, but where you view it from that matters. To take a step back, the answer is the same answer that I gave to both Jim and Dave. Take a step back. Don't be caught, rather be free. Do you understand, Wendy? Have I explained it sufficiently for you?
Thank you. I will listen to this again. And you have answered very well. And sometimes my answer is, well, when I give up the body, then there will be no more bodily pain or suffering. But until then, probably bodies have that.
Yes, well, bodies will have that. But you need to make sure that you do not recreate it in the for the next body. So, if you remember, there was a story, and maybe you did not hear it, of a great sage that was to become enlightened. And he chose that he would now enter the realm of God and merge with God at the end of this life. And he saw that path and chose to end his life. And as he did so, he had the dream of being a beautiful vision he once saw of a beautiful deer. And that ensured his reincarnation of a deer. And he did not enter God. So the clarity of mind is important, not the attachment. And this is why in the great mantras, They are a practice for the process of death. So in dying, if you knew the name of God, you will assure your journey to God. As you call, then that desire is met. But if you do not know the name of God, then maybe you will remember a deer or an injury of the body. Deal with your issue. Step back from it. Do not carry it. Otherwise, it will be ballast to the boat. It is something you are experiencing. It is not you. You do not need to carry it further. Just see it and live it, but not be it. The physical world can produce certain miracles, or what is perceived to be a miracle. Strange and rare phenomena. And that strange phenomena may take many different wondrous visions, but it still points back to the truth. You are beyond the physical form. What is required is to stand back and look from a different position. God bless you all. My heart is with you. Mm.